Lots of people talk about chasing their dreams, but how many actually do it? Welcome to the Pursue Your Passion podcast with Tyler Kammerman. We're going to introduce you to people who are intentionally pursuing their passion every day. Through their stories of success and their struggles, you'll gain insight into how to better begin or continue your journey. Now here's Tyler with today's guest.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pursue Your Passion podcast. This is Tyler Kammerman with you as always. I am excited today. I have a new friend of mine, Dr. Recker. He wears a lot of hats as a husband, father, dentist, elite success coach, speaker, author, pilot, and recovering triathlete. He's pushed his life to the limit and discovered that what he was searching for at the top of the mountain wasn't there. In the second half of his life, he is committed to helping people learn how to win the now, which we're going to talk about more because that's the name of his book, and discover the life that they were meant to live. A life with hope, a plan, and a belief that good days are truly ahead. Welcome to the show, Eric.
It's awesome to be with you, Tyler.
That bio tells me that we have a lot of the same things in mind.
Love it.
Yes. So, Pursue Your Passion podcast. I've got Eric Recker, the author of Win the Now, and as you can hear from his bio, he's passionate about what he's doing. So, I'm excited to have you here. And Eric and I actually have connected through my new pathway passion, my role as the development officer for Many Hands for Haiti. And I know that is one of the passions that Eric has. But yeah, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Eric, you got a lot of different moving parts. So, one of the things that I always like to ask people is, tell me about the passion or passions that you're pursuing, that you're really chasing hard after right now.
Yeah. So I am a chaser. As you can see, I don't really have to say that, but that is something I've been accused of being. Currently, I really feel like this Win the Now message is an appropriate message for this time in history right now for where we're at. And so I'm trying to chase that in any way that I can, whether that's through coaching, through speaking, through blogging, posting on social media. Those are the things I'm spending the most time with right now.
Right on. So tell us about that message. Tell us about the Win the Now message.
Yeah. So without going too much in detail, my life was thrown upside down by COVID, just like everybody else's was. And that's when I really started to get more intentional about writing. And so Win the Now is a concept that I thought of when I was sitting in my prayer room in my office, just trying to make sense of life. And I think one of the problems is we get so distracted and we have a really hard time living present in our own lives.
Yep.
And Win the Now is all about being an active participant in our own lives, not phoning it in, not showing up halfway there, trying to be in the same place with your mind and with your body.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So there was a lot of different things in that intro. So Win the Now is the passion that you're pursuing. But maybe tell us a little bit about how you got there. One of the things in your bio is a dentist. So
Yep.
Maybe tell us a little bit about how we led into this revelation, for lack of a better word, during the COVID times.
Yeah, I mean, how much time do you have, Tyler?
Well, I'll cut you off if you go too long.
Good. So I love being a dentist, but the reason that I love being a dentist is the relationships that I get to form with people. So this is year 21 for me. So I have a lot of patients that I've seen for that whole 20 years. So
Wow.
When you've seen people for 20 years, and they're in a pretty vulnerable position when they're in my office.
Right.
So ultimately, you get to have some deep conversations if you choose to go there with people.
Sure.
And so that's always been a huge part of my life. And I tell people that if it was just for fixing teeth, I like to do that. But if that's all it was about, I would have been out of here a long time ago.
Wow.
So we fix teeth, but in the meantime, we form a lot of great relationships, a lot of highs and lows, and people will share crazy things when they're sitting in a dental chair.
Yeah.
I can definitely attest to that. So early on, I just learned a lot more about listening. I'm traditionally a fixer, and my wife has taught me a ton about fixing and when you usually should not try to fix something.
As has mine.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's something that many of us struggle with.
Yeah.
But I love being in relationships with people. So I love having an inner circle of people that I can really, really go to. And I like being that person for other people. So it seems like the coaching has kind of been a natural draw from that, because people just seem to come to me and have things that they want to discuss. And I love doing that.
Sure. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I will say, it's not that I've interviewed a lot of dentists, but that is new. I wouldn't. I don't think a lot of people, put dentist and developing deep relationships together. I don't. I wouldn't say, and nothing. I think my dentist is a great dentist, but I don't have that. He hasn't dug to that level with me.
Yeah.
So I think that is unique for sure.
Yeah, it brings me a lot of fulfillment. So I want to have a job where I feel like I'm making an impact beyond what my specific vocation is. And I think I'm where I'm supposed to be, helping lead a team of 18 people, and being able to be in relationship with those people as well as my patients. And at the end of the day, the days that I'm charged up are not the days that we got a whole bunch of dentistry done. It's the days that I had good conversations.
Yeah. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. I have to tell you though, as you were saying that, one of my favorite comedy specials, and it's ingrained in my mind because it was one that my dad and I enjoyed together. So, have you seen Bill Cosby himself?
I have.
Okay, you're talking about having a conversation with your with your clients, and I'm immediately thinking of Bill Cosby and his stand up on with his dentist. So, sorry, but that's where my brain went immediately.
Oh, you're good. There's so many dental jokes. It's crazy. So people think, oh yeah, you wait till you get your hands in our mouth and then you start asking these
questions.
really detailed questions that we can't answer yes or no. Yeah, yeah, we have quite a reputation for that.
That's great. That's
Yep.
great. So, I think the unique thing about where you're at in the pursuit of your passion, in this new side venture, is this is still pretty new, correct?
It is.
Yep. So, you may have said it when in the first answer, but when did you start? Was it during COVID? I mean, when did you actually start down this path?
Yeah. So I am used to being a pedal to the metal kind of guy.
Sure.
So I will, left to my own devices, I will work myself right into the ground. That's just what I do. So COVID was a time of disillusionment for me because I couldn't have my office open. And that was such a huge part of my identity.
How long was that? Sorry.
2 months.
Okay. Yep.
It was almost exactly 2 months.
Yep.
So there was so much angst. What do I do?
Yeah.
There were so many CE classes that were coming out online that you could watch to listen to the newest thing about COVID or how we were going to come back or all of these different things. And I watched way too much.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with myself. But I did commit to spending 30 minutes of quiet every single day. I said, every day that my office is closed, I'm going to spend 30 minutes of quiet. The first day, I think I looked at my watch about 43 seconds into it. Like, this just isn't going to work. But I kept at it, and I really heard a lot of things. And I started journaling more intentionally. So that ended up being a huge thing for me, was just to have time to journal more purposefully. I've always been a journaler, but doing it more purposefully.
Sure.
And then then we went back to work mid-May, and we were so crazy busy.
I'll bet.
The backlog, and then wearing the N95 masks and all the stuff we had to wear. So we were busy and exhausted.
Yep.
And I had a phone call with my practice management consultant in July, and I said to him, Matt, I just feel like we're living in this false sense of urgency right now. And he goes, wait a minute, back that up. What are you talking about? I said, well, it's just this, we got to be doing something, but we don't know what to do. We don't really understand COVID. We're looking at our phones. We're lost in all of that. What do we do? And so he said, you need to write a book on that. And then I'll have you come speak for me and some of my clients.
Nice.
So I sat down that day. It was on a Friday morning, and I sat down right after that and started writing. I didn't know what I was writing. I just started with an intro for False Sense of Urgency. I didn't even know it was going to be Win the Now at that point.
Sure.
And I just started writing. And it took me about 8 weeks, and I had my first manuscript.
Wow. So that was basically 2 months into COVID, and then
Yep.
this kind of progressed from there.
Yep. And then so from there, I got hooked up with a publishing company. We could have a whole podcast on the ups and downs of that part.
Sure,
But then
yeah.
from there, I set up a website, partly to be able to sell my book, but just to be able to connect with more people through a blog and through social media posting. It's just kind of grown from there.
Yeah.
And then it kind of stalled out because I'd love to do some more speaking about this, but I just didn't know how to do it. I
Yep.
didn't know how to grow that part of my business on my own. So recently I've started working with a coach to try to get some strategies. I just learned that there's no reason to try to reinvent the wheel. There's people who have done this before.
Bingo.
Exactly. So I listen a whole lot more than I used to. So
That's good.
When we talked on Friday, we talked about podcasting.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that when the time is right. That's
Yep.
part of what I would like to do. I don't need to invent how to do that on my own. I need to, as our friend Tim Brand says, stand on the shoulders
Yes.
of those who have gone before and
Yep.
learn from them.
Yep. Absolutely. So I think, it's interesting. You're at a lot of the people that I've talked to, they're kind of, I don't want to say they've reached success, because I don't, I think you can always go further, as you've proven to yourself with your different ventures. But you're probably earlier on in the process than a lot of the people that I'm talking to. So and I think that that's great, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk to you. So you're working with the coach now. What does the next 6 months or next year look like for you? I mean, what are the benchmarks? What are the milestones that you're trying to set for? Benchmark is better than milestone. What are the benchmarks that or goals that you have set for yourself, for the next 6 months or the next year?
Yeah. One of the huge ones is just getting my website in order the way I want it to be, that reflects coaching and speaking. Coaching is ultimately where my passion is.
Okay.
I love to work with people and help to figure out solutions.
Yeah.
So that is what, every chance I get to do that, if somebody just wants to hash out life, boy, I'm bouncing off the walls. I'm ready to do that. So coaching is such a natural fit for that. I love to speak to people as well. I love to be in front of groups and share the message. I think there's power in being able to speak to a group and talk from your own stories.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% believe that everything I've had to go through to get to this point has led up until now. So having enough content probably is not going to be a problem going forward.
Yeah.
But those are the things I love to do.
Yeah. Well, and so I think you just said something, what you've had to go through to get up to this point, and again, you're a unique individual, but you've got a unique story as well, because most people, when they make the decision to be a dentist, that's what they do, right? And then that's maybe they buy a practice, or form a partnership, or start doing dentures along with having a dental practice, but that's kind of they stay in that lane, so to speak.
Yep.
So you have built a successful dental practice, and now you've got a side hustle, as the kids say, that you're pursuing as your passion. But I want to jump back to the things that you've had to go through, because I think part of what I always want to talk to, and what I want the listeners to hear, is different things that they can align with. And so would you mind talking a little bit about the struggles that you just mentioned, and what those have looked like in the dental practice, and just in your life in general, that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started being on the receiving end of some bullying when I was in second grade, and it profoundly impacted my outlook on the world. Monday morning is not a time when an 8-year-old should have to lie awake in bed before his mom comes and wakes him up to go to school.
Yeah, wow.
I'm so thankful that home was a safe place, but school was not a safe place. And when all you want to do is be friends with everybody, and you're standing there at recess when everybody's been picked to play, and you're not picked last, you're not picked. So that's a painful thing. And so I made a vow with myself really early. And it wasn't where I said it out loud, but I made it with my inner self that I was going to be the best at everything I could ever do, so that no one would ever not pick me.
Wow.
And so there was that. And so what that created was a fear of Mondays, because Monday meant I had to face the world again. And it has really been, I would say, within the last 6 to 8 months where I've really figured out what was behind that. And so the striving and the fear of Mondays have been such a huge thing to try to overcome and deal with. So there would be nights before work on Monday nights, nights before school, nights before work, that I wouldn't sleep. Not that I'd have a bad night of sleep, that I wouldn't sleep. And so then you come in and you have to be everything to everybody in a service business, and you have to be switched on, and you have nothing left.
Yeah.
And then you spend the whole rest of the week trying to build back up, and then fall off a cliff on Sunday again.
And so you were still experiencing that even recently, like
Yeah.
when the practice was already successful.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I never believed that anything I had done was good enough.
So this is just a recent, revelation for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had this passion and this hard work ethic, but you were still dealing with, really staggering, I would say, anxiety to,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I've only really called it what it actually is recently.
Wow.
Severe anxiety.
Right. Yeah,
It's
absolutely. That's what I'm
what it
hearing.
was.
So a lot of people, they have to figure that out in order to really do life well. And yet you were able to push through it. And I know you said you kind of had this vow of, hey, I'm going to be the best at everything that I could do. But what did that, how? I guess, maybe that's too simple of a question, but how do you push through that? How did you push through that, not really even knowing what it was?
Yeah. I just kept living life.
Okay.
I just kept living life. It has not always been a pleasant experience. It
Yeah.
really was my freshman year of high school before I found my people. So I really had that time where I didn't know who I was. But still, it was that always worried about what other people thought of me.
Yep.
And worried if I was good enough.
Sure.
And then when you see however many people during a day, and you wonder about every one of those people, it's not a blatant thing, but a subconscious thing. It really gets to be kind of an animal. But a lot of the things that I've chased and strived for, I think looking back on them, have been to kind of stuff some of those fears. So
Sure.
I'm distracted in other things. So triathlon was a heck of a distraction, something that you have to do. When I was doing Ironman distance,
Wow.
you're 20 hours a week training. So 20 hours a week training, plus working, and then also trying to be a dad and a husband. You don't have time for anything else, so you can stay pretty distracted in the midst of all of that.
Push the stuff that's bothering you. You push that away by more work.
Yeah. And I had a choice to make. I could either let all of that define me, and it could limit my trajectory, or I could just keep going.
Yeah.
I chose to just keep going.
Well, and I think that's that's obviously the big takeaway is, you've got a very successful dental practice. So clearly you didn't let that define you, even though you were battling with that all along.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
absolutely.
a big deal. I don't want to get stuck in the struggle for too
No,
long.
That's okay.
But that's
it's a big part of the story. And
absolutely.
So one of the things that I want to speak on, one of my talks, signature talks, is going to be overcoming the paralyzing fear of Mondays.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a handful of people out there that don't like Mondays, maybe a couple handfuls, or millions of people that don't like Mondays.
Right. It's funny. I've heard my son say that. Oh, I've got a case of the Mondays. I think his Mondays are a little different than yours, but I think he just would prefer to play video games instead of go to school. But I think that's a topic that will probably grab some attention.
I think so.
Yeah.
And really what's made a huge difference is just making a few simple inputs. It's not really changing everything. It's just a few simple inputs that have made a huge difference. One was just realizing that I didn't have to be everything to everyone. I didn't have to have every answer for every single person, all my staff, all my people, my family, all of that, and giving myself some grace in some of that.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That was huge. And that just happened. Monday mornings, I get here pretty early and I usually there's kind of an oval upstairs and I just kind of walk that. And I listen and I pray. And as I was walking that, just trying to make sense after a kind of crummy night of sleep, that just popped into my head. And I thought, oh boy, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
And I kind of released myself from having to feel that way. And it's made a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
What are a couple more of you said there were several kind of inputs that you've made changes on. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we moved, during COVID and during all of this, we moved as well. And we moved to a place that's about 2 miles away from my office. So now on Monday mornings, I walk to work and then I walk home.
Okay.
And I have one rule for my time on Monday mornings when I'm walking in, and that it's only gratitude. So I walk in, and for about that 30 minutes that I'm walking in, it's anything I can think of that I'm grateful, saying it out loud. So people who see me walking, I am talking to myself, and I'm okay with that. But
I don't even have any earbuds in. I am straight up talking to
I'm
myself.
straight up, and if I look like I'm looking around goofy, I'm being thankful for the clouds and for the sidewalk to be able to walk to work and just anything I can think of. And then on the walk home, it's just either listening to some music or being quiet or just more gratitude.
Sure. That gratitude piece is one that is really overlooked. I mean, you can get hung up on the power of positive thinking, but there is power there. I mean, and there is power in being grateful for the things that we have, the beauty around us, the people that are in our lives.
Yep.
And I did that in the wrong order, by the way. The people in our lives, the beauty around us, then the things that we have.
They're all important.
They are.
They all make the cut. And then I had a coaching client that I was working with, and I talked to them about making a list of things that they're grateful for. I could see some twitchiness, some anxiety with that. I said, what are three things in this room you're thankful for? And it was, it was in their office, and it was, this couch that I get to sit on, my computer so I can do the things I have, and then my journal.
Yeah.
I said, there you go.
There's your start.
And then maybe before you go to sleep tonight, write down 3 things that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And then if you're really stuck, get out a piece of paper and see how many things you can write.
Yeah.
Because in my life at least, I call fear, worry, stress, and anxiety the 4 horsemen of my apocalypse.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And they don't do very well in the presence of gratitude.
They do not.
They do not. So that is one thing that I've tried to, whenever I get in a funk or I feel any of those rising up, it's time for gratitude.
Yeah, that's great. So, that's not necessarily a new concept, right?
Right.
But it's one that I think most people don't grasp the power in that. I did a course. One of my buddies reached out to me and was like, "Hey, you can get a course from Yale for free on Coursera right now," and it was called The Science of Well-Being. And it was it was the science behind having a positive, not physical but mental
Mindset.
mindset.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm stuck for words there.
No, you're good.
But one of the practices, and it was kind of a layering of things, but one of the practices was, to make a list of 5 things that you're grateful for at least once a day. And, again, it wasn't the first time I've heard that, but to get in the practice of doing that, it's amazing how just that one thing starts to shift the way that you view your day.
It really does. And I don't know why we think that we need to just keep learning more and more and more self-help things all the time, more and more complicated self-help things that we're really never going to use,
Right.
when there are some tried and true methods that other people have used and are working before. Gratitude's a great one. That's the first thing I tell people if they feel stuck. I said, why don't you just experiment? What's a way that you can experiment with gratitude this week?
Yep. Yeah, that's a huge one.
Yeah,
That's a huge one.
I think so.
So, one question that I would like to ask, and this is a life question, not necessarily focused on business, but what's been your biggest success, or successes, and or what are you the most proud of?
Yeah. Uh, that is one that has really kind of come to the surface lately. I am most proud of the men that my sons are becoming.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And when I was thinking about that, when I really had that realization, it was quite emotional because you do your best, and I swung and missed a lot as a dad
We
with
all
them
do.
growing up. But when I see the way that they relate to other people, when I see their faith, when I see what they want to do with their lives and interact with people to make the world a better place, it's very overwhelming. And so I knew I would screw up on a lot of things, but I always prayed that I wouldn't screw up on that.
Yeah,
And to see that, I couldn't be more proud of them.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
that's a spot where I hope that I'm answering that question that way, 10 years from now. I mean, I'm already very proud of my kids, but they're almost a decade behind your son. So
Yeah.
that well done. I'm glad to hear that I hear that.
Even in the midst of all the mud and the busyness when life was chaotic, we still had guys' weekends. We carved out time where the three of us would go and just do something. And it's been great because then you hope that someday they'll ask you to go on guy weekends with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Those are the guys that I look at and I'm like, I want to learn what they did, right? Like when their 25-year-old son wants to hang out with them, like they did something right. They did more than one thing right, you
Yep.
know?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's pretty surreal to think of what we get to do. My son, who's 17, he's a senior this year. He just got his pilot's license in June. And I asked him what he wanted to do this summer. And we looked and we looked and we settled, well, not settled. We decided to go learn to fly float planes in Winter Haven, Florida. So he had his pilot's license for 2 months before he learned how to fly a float
Fly a
plane.
float plane.
And to
Wow.
get to experience that together, and then this fall, my older son and I, we're going to go take a weekend in Chicago and go check out a Bears game because he is a huge Bears fan. And yeah, we're going to sit club seats
Sure.
just because.
Yeah, just because. That's awesome.
Yes.
You said float plane, and I immediately am like, okay, so now we got to get you in touch with Bob Goff, and maybe you can fly him up to his place in British Columbia and, pick his brain on the way up there.
Oh, Bob is awesome. That guy lives quite a life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He has now I'm just plugging an author here on my show, but I've talked about him plenty of times.
Oh, yeah.
He has kids books also.
He
So
does.
he's turned Love Does and Everybody Always into kids books, and so we're reading one of those stories after dinner at night, and they're just fantastic because it's the same stories from the books, but
Yeah.
then he and his daughter Lindsay have turned them into kids stories, and so it's just fun. My kids are like, "Did he really do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, he really did that."
He's amazing. And reading his stories about flying was inspiring to me
Yeah,
for sure when I was thinking about becoming a pilot.
yeah.
Definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, and mentioning Bob, one question that I like to ask is, what dream or goal haven't you reached yet? But I'm gonna put a little adjective on there. Big, hairy, audacious goal. What's out there? You've mentioned where when the now is going, but do you have something out there like I want to speak at this conference, or I want to do this one thing. Like, what's that really big one that you've got placed for yourself? And maybe not, maybe it's not with Win the Now, maybe it's something else.
Yeah. So ultimately, what's interesting is I heard a number when I was during COVID, when I was during my quiet time, and I just prayed for to have impact on 1 million lives. I just prayed for that. I just said, God, what would that look like? And in a second, I heard back 10 million. And so I'm planting my stake on the ground on that we're going to try to take the Win the Now message to 10 million people. I absolutely won't be able to do that on my own.
Right.
But my hope is that I can impact one person, and that person can impact somebody else, and then the ripple effect goes.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this. Some people say, if it makes a difference for one person, that's all that matters.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I've spent a lot of time on this. I want it to make a difference for a person, and then for another one, and then for another one. But yes, it makes that's the goal is to just have an impact.
Yeah.
So I don't really have an event or anything that
Sure.
I'd like to speak at, but my big goal is just to be in meaningful relationships with people and help them either get unstuck or help get on the path to the life that they were meant to live.
If you're keeping notes at home, that's now the third person on this podcast that has said at least 1 million people, and all three of those guys know each other. So let's stay tuned and see what happens on that one. That one made me smile pretty big when he said it. So
Love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna shift backwards a little bit because one question that I like to ask that I haven't asked you, and you actually shared that this was a tough time in your life, but tell me about tell us about your dreams as a kid. You know, what did 7-year-old Eric want to be, or what did 10-year-old Eric want to be when he grew up?
Yeah, well, 7-year-old Eric wanted to drive a garbage truck.
Heck yeah.
Oh man, he wanted
Why?
to drive a garbage truck. 'Cause they were cool.
They were big and loud and cool.
Big, and my parents were amazing. So if we'd ever go by where they were digging a foundation for a house or anything, I'd go sit on a bulldozer when I was about that age. And then the county had these trucks that had like one tire in the front that was massive and two in the back. I don't even know what they're called, but we called them the noisy truck.
The noisy truck.
And they would keep them in a garage. And after church, we would drive out there, and I'd get to look through the window in the garage at the noisy truck. So I wanted to do something with big trucks.
Okay.
When I was that age.
So I love asking that question because sometimes there is like this direct correlation, and then other times there's not. Although what jumped into my head when you said garbage truck is big impact, right?
Yeah.
The garbage trucks make a big impact. You want to make, I don't know.
They do.
That might be a stretch, but
I was actually, you're exactly right by that. I was actually in India about 15 years ago, and we were in the airport getting ready to fly out, and there was a strike that was going on, but the people who were striking were the people who kept the airport clean.
Oh.
So you can imagine what the airport looked like.
Yeah.
So that was a perfect picture of the impact that our sanitation people can have. We were the last flight out of there. We got so fortunate. They shut the airport down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that looks like.
Yeah. I was actually well into college before I wanted to be a dentist.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to be a physical therapist when I went to University of Iowa.
Okay.
I went to an all-day symposium for physical therapy, and I was tanking general chem at that point. It was ugly. And so I asked a question, and the meeting happened to be at the dental school because the dental school's auditorium was a little bigger.
Okay.
And so I was sitting there, and you could ask anonymous questions, and they drew my question and said, "Can you get into physical therapy with a C in Chem 1?" And the guy about fell over laughing. I got up and walked out of the room. I'm like, I knew I needed to do better.
Sure.
And I did. But just that, there just something didn't feel right. And I spent about an hour walking around the dental school, and my dad is a dentist,
Okay.
but I had never once wanted to do what he did. And I went home and talked to him and said, Dad, can I just see what you do? And I saw the impact he had on his patients, and I saw how he built his practice. And I said, that's absolutely what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. What would you say to someone who's struggling to find their passion? I know, like, again, you've done a lot of different things, continue to do a lot of different things, but yeah, what would you say to somebody that's struggling to figure out what their passion or purpose is?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd say don't put too much pressure on yourself, because I'm 45 and I've been trying to do it most of my life.
Yeah, here.
So, I think I love the word passion. I'm full of it. Absolutely. But sometimes it's a word that can carry some baggage for people.
Sure.
So people start to feel guilty or inadequate, or if they're in a job that they're not passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard it said that you either work for your passion or you find a job that allows you to do your passion on the side.
Yeah.
And I love that. And that's kind of what I'm doing. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. Now I love the relationship part of my job, and the dentistry part is just fine.
Yeah.
It's just fine, and I can definitely make a difference with that. But I would say people are struggling with that. First of all, don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah. Totally agree.
The next thing would be just to think about those things that bring you joy. What are the things that it's interesting. My wife has pointed this out for me. The days that I have a coaching call, I come home from work, I'm like walking on the ceiling.
Yep.
She's like, wow, you had a good day. I'm like, because I'm super excited about it.
Yeah.
But find those things that bring you joy. And then I'm a huge fan of suggesting experiments for people. So what are some small experiments you could do to work more of that into your life?
Yep.
And experiments are great because they either work or they don't. So they're all valuable.
Yep.
And so if you can come up with a couple little things that you can do to test out that thing that brings you joy, it may grow into something else.
Yeah.
But don't ever put too much pressure on yourself about finding a passion.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And I love the experiment piece. Britt Brown, she was on the show at the beginning, episode 2 or 3. She said, I don't believe in failure. And you've heard different people say, because as long as you learn, it's not failure. But I love what she said. She's like, an idea or a project doesn't fail, it expires. And I was like, okay, because she's like, think about it. When your milk goes bad in the fridge, you don't say the milk failed, the milk expired. And it was just, just a completely different way to look at it, because we've all heard as long as you're learning, it's not, you don't fail. But I love the difference between failure and expiration. That business expired, that idea expired rather than failed.
I love that, because
Yeah.
there's a terrible connotation with failure
Right.
as well.
Yes.
Even though, it took a couple tries to get the incandescent light bulb to work.
Right.
But those were experiments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes you learn how not to do something.
Exactly.
This is, I started writing this book. It's been almost 2 years ago. This stuff doesn't just happen overnight.
No.
I have hundreds of hours into this.
Right.
And that's okay, but it's not a switch that flips. And I think the more that you're intentional about it, deciding what really brings you joy, trying a few experiments to get into it, and then seeing what sticks, you're more likely to actually find what sticks.
Right. Right. So kind of on the same subject, what about, someone that has found where they're going, whether in their 8 to 5 or kind of a side project like you're doing, but they found themselves stuck, at times, in your practice or with your triathlon, training for the triathlons, if you experience that thing, where it's like, oh, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do next. Do you have any suggestions, what maybe you used, or in hindsight, what you wish you would have done differently to get out of that stuck spot?
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to give yourself permission to have a little break. And I think one of the things that we do that's kind of a self-sabotage thing is that we just keep forging ahead. We always just keep forging ahead.
Sure.
I got to keep my eye on the prize. I can't let my foot off the gas, all those cliches and
Right.
all of that stuff. And I can be that person. I worked with a coach when I was doing triathlon, and he wrote up a program for me, and I missed 2 workouts in a year. 2.
Whoa.
So I can get super robotic.
I
Now,
missed 2 workouts this week.
That's awesome. Good for you, man.
Sorry.
I love it. But I can get super robotic, but I was in such a rut, and I just kept pushing through and pushing through and pushing through. Sometimes it's just a little time to step back. And I think another thing that we don't do at all, since we have our supercomputers in our hands all the time,
Right.
is we don't have silence and solitude.
Mm.
Sometimes you're never going to hear anything. You're never going to, I don't think you'll probably get unstuck unless a couple things. Seeking wise counsel from someone else. That's a huge thing. So if you don't have a mentor in your life or someone that you can get real with, that needs to be a really big priority.
Yeah.
So I have a mentor that I meet with once a month, and he has taught me so many things. Another thing, so someone to talk to, getting quiet for decent amounts of time. And that might not just be sitting in a room. That might be, if your drive home is 10 minutes, turn it into 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I know gas is expensive, but it's worth it. Just no music, just sitting quiet. Break up your routine a little bit. Maybe if you can, take a vacation day and go do something that you love to do. Sometimes we have to mess up our routine to see that there could be something different.
Yep. Yeah. That's great suggestions. I love that. And all of them are great, but that quiet one, I think, is the one that we probably have heard before, but we avoid the most. Especially like you said, with our supercomputers in our hand, it is so rare for us to actually give our brains a break, other than when we're actually trying to sleep. That I think people have lost they've lost the benefit that can give us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then we wonder why we don't sleep well.
Right.
Because the last thing we see is that super bright screen. No matter how dim it is, doesn't really matter. So one of the other things that became really, really apparent to me was the concept of first in, last in. So what I mean by that is, what is the first thing that is in your mind? What's the first input you're giving yourself in the morning? And what's the last input that you're giving yourself at the end of the day? If your first input that you're giving yourself is streaming social media and news and all of that, it's probably not going to be a good start to the day. And if the last thing that you do before you go to sleep is you're looking at your phone, and especially news.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If you're doing that, you're probably not going to sleep well.
Right. That's a great reminder for the guy sitting across the room from you, because there for a while I was really doing great about like hour before bed, no phone. And when I got up in the morning, an hour without the phone as well. And I'm still doing pretty well in the morning, but it's the before bed, got in the habit of playing my word games and, stay away from news. But even just that blue light,
Yeah.
it's I gotta get back on that train.
Well, it's easy for me to say that, but I also believe that everything that I have written about, learned about, all the content has been for me as much as anybody else. There's still nights that I have my phone right next to me and I'll pick it up and start looking at things. I know how I'm going to feel in the morning, but I still do it.
Right. Right.
So
I'm not going to sleep as well.
Yeah. It's just a constant reminder that if that's what we're going to feed ourselves before we go to sleep, then we have to deal with the consequences of that.
Right. Yeah. That's big. So I always also like to ask 3 favorite books. And I know that's hard for some people, and I end up like rephrasing the question like 3 different times, but I'll just stick with 3 favorite. It can be 3 overall favorite or 3 favorite right now.
Yeah. I love that. I hear the word favorite and perfectionism just kicks
like, oh,
in.
No.
As if you would know if I didn't give you my 3 favorites.
Right. You can make up whatever you want to at this point.
So I love soundtracks by John Acuff. Huge fan of that book. So
I just got it.
you did?
Yeah.
Oh
Haven't
man,
even
we're gonna have
cracked
to
the
talk
cover
about it.
yet.
We're gonna have to talk about it. And then I really like In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day by Mark Batterson.
Such a good book.
Yep. If we don't chase some of those things, then we're in trouble.
Yep.
And then three's a tie, and I couldn't. I've been thinking about it, and I couldn't. But it's Love Does by Bob Goff, and then Power of Positive Leadership by John Gordon.
Okay. So you did 4.
I did 4.
I'm going to read one of them. I've read 2, and I haven't read the one by John Gordon. But
okay.
Yeah.
A good one.
Yeah. That's awesome. Eric, I have really appreciated the time today. I appreciate your candor, talking about some of the tough stuff that you had to deal with as a kid. Where can the listeners find out more about you, about the book? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my website, www.ericrecker.com, is a great way to start. We are right in the middle of kind of a rebranding new launch. So it's probably going to be, so stick with us just a little bit. The website's good. It all works, but
Sure.
Within the next couple months, it's going to look a lot different. I'm
Okay.
super excited about that. But for now, that's a great place to go and check out the book. My blog is on there, and then links to Facebook and Instagram. So
Awesome.
That's probably the best place to reach me right now.
That makes it easy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us on the Pursue Your Passion podcast and sharing your stories with the listeners.
It's been a great pleasure, Tyler.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Everybody, thanks for being along on this journey. We are coming up on the end of our first season, which is super exciting to me. We're coming up on a year of doing this together. So I would just encourage you, if you haven't shared this with your friends, please do so. There's a lot of great stories. And if you're just joining because you know Eric, or if you just joined last episode, I'd encourage you to go back and listen to the previous episodes because we've had some great guests on this first year. So looking forward to heading into season 2 with you, and we'll talk with you all again soon.
If you have questions or would like to contact us, please check out the show details for contact information. Thanks for listening to the Pursue Your Passion podcast.